Grand Admiral Thrawn has captured the imaginations of Star Wars fans since his inception, and it's hard to point to a villain introduced in the expanded universe who's had the same lasting impact or staying power within the fandom. He's also a character who's the subject of usually fun but sometimes intense debates around his goals, characterization, and other factors. Eckhart's Ladder and I talked about this a lot in our TapCap Transmissions episodes on the Thrawn trilogy, which we recently wrapped up by putting The Last Command on top of our personal book rankings so far. But Thrawn is also a character whose portrayal evolved a lot. More Timothy Zahn had a chance to flesh out his backstory, motivations, and personality. He's evolved from the mysterious, impenetrable mastermind of the Thrawn trilogy to the somewhat self-sacrificing, benevolent leader with a bit of an edge we get a picture of in the books like the Hand of Thrawn duology, Outbound Flight, and Choices of One. With the context of these extra books, today's video is going to look at one main question. When would Thrawn have worked with the New Republic instead of against him? This may seem like a bit of begging the question assuming that Thrawn would, but considering by the 40s after the Battle of Yavin, even Atassi Dala, arguably the most staunch of Imperials, is part of the Galactic Alliance, and I think it's safe to assume that at least by the Vong War, Thrawn's focus would have been on beating the extragalactic invaders as opposed to fighting rebels, supported by the plans set up by him and Palpatine in Outbound Flight. I won't pretend to give any kind of definitive answer here. A lot of this is a lot of my own opinions, especially since it seems to have been something that evolved over time in Timothy Zahn's mind as well. But I do think there's some fun hints dropped at different points, which indicate where Thrawn's true sympathies may lie. In Outbound Flight, we see the first meeting between Thrawn and Palpatine, and in this meeting, Thrawn is made aware of the threat posed by the Yuuzhan Vong. This, along with other threats to the galaxy and in particular the Chiss Ascendancy, form the true impetus behind Thrawn's actions throughout his life. Even after he joins the Empire, we get some indications that he isn't really looking out for the Empire's best interests as his primary goal. In his formation of the Empire of the Hand, it's alluded to that although Palpatine sent him out to pacify the regions, not even Palpatine was aware of Thrawn's personal empire being set up, which makes sense considering it was mostly used for the benefit of the Chiss as opposed to the Empire itself, or also for the benefit of the people within it. Thrawn and those loyal to him often spoke disapprovingly of many of Palpatine's efforts. In my opinion, it often seems to be more that Thrawn was willing to use Palpatine as a means to an end, and saw the Empire as the most stable opposition to galactic threats for the moment. Even in the Thrawn trilogy, in his meetings with the Mad Jedi Master clone, Sabayoth, and sometimes Pelion, there was less of an emphasis on what the political structures they were trying to form looked like, and more on simply ending the rebellion. There's obviously an element of trying to appease Sabayoth there. Considering Thrawn's Empire of the Hand poached deserters from the Empire, disapproved of Palpatine's methods, he clearly had a preference for sustaining that over the Empire itself. When it came time to fight the rebellion himself in the Thrawn trilogy, he left the Empire of the Hand's forces in the unknown regions, believing it more important to continue their work there than beating the rebellion quickly. And then we get a key piece of evidence in the Hand of Thrawn duology, when Luke and Mara Jade talk to Vos Park, Soontir Fel, and Commander Stent, Thrawn's stewards after his death. When asked why they never intervened in the fight against the New Republic on the Remnant side, they responded simply they did not know which side Thrawn would have preferred to take. As much as Thrawn saw the Force as a tool he could use to win the war, he was clearly cautious of what would become of the Empire under the control of a Dark Jedi, represented by Sabayoth, whom Thrawn saw as not driven by a desire for stability, but merely for control. And I think from there we can pick some key points out that Thrawn would have strongly opposed the Empire after Endor on, to the point of potentially joining the New Republic's fight against the Emperor. I think a case can be made at certain points either direction, though it's hard to see Thrawn worrying about stabilizing the pitiful remains of the Empire by the time of the Orinda campaign or final Imperial push, when he could have simply just gone and helped the Chiss Ascendancy prepare. But I don't think a lot of these would have pushed him to fight against the Empire directly either. I think the place where we'd most likely see Thrawn join with the New Republic to fight Imperial forces was Dark Empire. In Dark Empire, we see all the parts of the Empire that Thrawn did not approve of, and very little of the stability he was trying to promote in the face of the Yuuzhan Vong. Palpatine had essentially devoted himself to the destruction of the galaxy for destruction's sake. He was perfectly happy to rain destruction not just on the rebels, but on his own forces as well, treating Imperial lives as if they mattered less than ever. Palpatine actively encouraged Imperial infighting, letting his best commanders prove their value against each other in the Imperial Mutiny, an act which had deprived Thrawn of precious resources during his own campaign. There are even some indications that Palpatine by Dark Empire was distrustful of what Thrawn was doing, as he did his own preparations for Operation Shadowhand. This seems to me like the logical breaking point for their alliance. Palpatine essentially represented a huge threat to the galaxy on his own, and was unlikely to stand for the same disobedience Thrawn talks about showing from time to time in the Thrawn trilogy when orders were unsound. I'm not going to say he would definitely have fought the Empire at this point, but it does seem to me like the most likely outcome had he survived. The last thing I want to mention is a hypothetical novel Timothy Zahn had spoken about making a few years ago, where he speculated about a story where a Thrawn clone would team up with Ben Skywalker to solve something, using Thrawn's abilities but also coming to terms with Thrawn's legacy in the galaxy. I explored the idea of Thrawn clones existing somewhere in the galaxy in a previous video, and I think it's certainly a cool idea that I would have loved to see. That's going to be it for today though. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with my conclusion that Thrawn would probably have fought against Dark Empire. If you have any ideas for future videos though, please also leave those in the comments. Thanks for watching and hope to see you next time.